Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. Chicago Fire Season 13's latest exit highlights how Carver is so unfairly treated. Sam Carver's Jake Lockett exit in Chicago Fire Season 13, Episode 14, titled Bar Time, again underscores how unfairly the Firehouse procedural treats his character. Carver is one of the newest members of Firehouse 51, having first transferred from Firehouse 132 in Chicago Fire Season 11. In his short time, however, he has had more than his fair share of tragedy, and Chicago Fire Season 13 has been especially difficult for him. Carver's main storyline in Season 13 has been his involvement with Tori, which is one of the most toxic love interest stories in Chicago Fire to date. Carver's relationship with Tori directly led to him drinking too much, which threatened his job in the past. Bar Time brings that storyline up again, as Carver takes extra shifts to keep his mind off his desire to drink, which leads him into trouble. Violet suspects Carver is drinking again, which forces him to reevaluate how well he is managing his life. Carver decides to step away from Firehouse 51 after the incident in which Violet accuses him of drinking on the job. Early in the episode, he reveals that he has stopped going to AA and distanced himself from everyone he loves because of the man who broke into Violet's house and claimed to be acting on Carver's behalf. It makes sense in terms of the story that he chooses to leave Firehouse 51 to protect his sobriety. However, this arc falls flat because it is the latest in a string of negative and heartbreaking stories for Carver. Carver was established as a tragic character from the beginning of his stint in One Chicago. Unfortunately, this is reflected every time he is written out temporarily. He left at the end of Chicago Fire Season 12 to clear his head after breaking up with Violet, Hanako Greensmith, only to get sucked into Tori's orbit. Additionally, this exit story is the second time Carver was forced to leave because of alcohol use in the same season. He was already temporarily suspended after getting in trouble with Kid in Episode 6, and now he is voluntarily leaving for the same reason. All of the One Chicago shows have a bad habit of rotating characters out of episodes without much of an explanation at all. While this is annoying, it also proves that Carver is getting far worse treatment than other Chicago Fire characters. For example, Kid or Severide will sometimes disappear without any explanation at all. If anything, they get a throwaway line explaining where they are, yet Carver gets a dramatic downward spiral every time he needs to step away for a few episodes. Carver can't appear in every episode because Chicago Fire is rotating cast members as a cost-cutting measure. However, it is unfair that he never gets to step away for a non-tragic reason, especially given that the rest of the Chicago Fire Season 13 cast has far less dramatic reasons for not appearing in various episodes. Additionally, it wouldn't have changed the story all that much if Carver were said in the next episode to be working at his other job, instead of having him take a leave of absence at the end of Bar Time. These tragic storylines emphasize Carver's alcoholism, which is aggravating because there is more to his character than that. Alcoholism is a popular choice for dramatic storylines because it is a highly destructive mental health condition if left untreated, but that doesn't mean that Carver's arc should only be about his continued relapses into alcohol abuse and how they interfere with his ability to fight fires effectively. Instead, Carver should be shown as a multifaceted, complicated character that is relatable rather than simply someone who keeps turning to alcohol because of difficult circumstances. Carver has become a solid member of the Firehouse 51 team, at least when he is sober. He is no longer isolated and has begun opening up about his past. He also often is supportive of other firefighters and paramedics. However, when Chicago Fire focuses on his struggles with sobriety, all of these other aspects of his personality get lost. This is a shame. Carver could be a complex, interesting character if he wasn't always saddled with yet another tragic storyline that forces him to take time off from his job. In the latest exit of Chicago Fire Season 13, fans were left stunned as one of the show's beloved characters made a dramatic departure. But it wasn't just the exit that had everyone talking, it was the unfair treatment of Carver, who, despite his dedication and strength as a firefighter, is once again forced to face the harsh realities of being constantly overlooked and undervalued by his peers. Carver's journey throughout the season had already been difficult, with the pressures of being the new guy at Squad 3, the constant comparison to his predecessors, and the weight of trying to prove himself to a team that didn't seem to trust him. While fans had hoped for a more satisfying character arc for Carver, the writers had different plans that seemed to highlight the difficulties of navigating a workplace where trust and camaraderie are not easily earned. From the moment Carver joined Firehouse 51, it was clear he was trying to fill some big shoes, following in the footsteps of heroes like Kelly Severide and Matt Casey. His intense desire to earn the respect of his fellow firefighters was palpable, yet it was also clear that not everyone was ready to accept him. While Carver tried to prove himself with every call, every action, there was a noticeable rift between him and the rest of the team, a sense that he was always on the outside looking in. The tension between Carver and Bowden was one of the central dynamics this season. As a captain who is known for his tough love approach, Bowden clearly saw potential in Carver. But instead of guiding him, Bowden often gave him the cold shoulder, constantly pushing him to go above and beyond while providing little support or encouragement. This lack of mentorship left Carver feeling isolated and undervalued, especially when compared to the supportive relationship Bowden had with other members of the crew. It was as if Carver had to earn his place every single day, with no allowance for mistakes or growth. Meanwhile, the other firefighters were not much kinder. The constant comparisons to Severide didn't help Carver's case, and while it was understandable that Severide's absence left a void, it felt as though Carver was being unfairly pitted against a man whose legacy was impossible to match. Carver was never given the time to develop his own identity within the firehouse. Instead, he was forced to always prove that he could handle the pressure, that he could be as good as Severide, even if that meant disregarding his own instincts and approaches. One of the most frustrating aspects of Carver's story this season was his struggle with the lack of support from his fellow firefighters. When things got tough, Carver was often left to fend for himself, while the rest of the team seemed to band together in their support for one another. His few moments of triumph were quickly overshadowed by the shadow of doubt that seemed to follow him everywhere he went. In situations where the team needed to come together to overcome challenges, Carver was often left on the sidelines, watching as others were celebrated for their teamwork, while his efforts went unnoticed. Perhaps one of the most telling moments in this season came during a high-stakes rescue mission where Carver was faced with the choice of either following the risky instincts that had led to his success in the past or playing it safe and risking the life of his team. In the end, Carver's decision proved to be the right one, but instead of receiving praise for his quick thinking, he was met with skepticism and criticism from his peers. It was as if no matter how much he did right, he could never earn the respect he so desperately needed. Even in his personal relationships, Carver's sense of being an outsider was apparent. His attempts to bond with others, especially Stella, fell flat, as she often focused more on dealing with her own issues than supporting him. While the team members had their moments of bonding, it felt as though Carver's efforts to fit in were often overlooked or dismissed, as if they weren't important enough to acknowledge. It was as though he was constantly being tested, but never given the opportunity to truly be a part of the family that is so central to the identity of Firehouse 51. As the season came to an end, Carver's exit was abrupt. It was clear that the writers were pushing him toward a crossroads in his career, one that would force him to make the difficult decision of whether to stay in a place where he felt constantly devalued or to walk away and find something else where his worth might be recognized. The weight of this decision was compounded by the fact that Carver had no one in his corner, no one to truly vouch for him or give him the push he needed to rise above the challenges he faced.